Welcome back. We're diving back into one of the big headlines of the day, that Supreme Court decision surrounding student loan forgiveness. As we told you at the top of the hour, this was a 6-3 decision from the nation's highest court, going down ideological lines. And it basically struck down President Biden's plan to relieve millions of borrowers of some of their student debt. So let's go ahead and check in with Winthrop political science professor Dr. Scott Huffman, who has a lot of insights to share with us. And Scott, I just want to dive right into what we just learned a few minutes ago from the president's address, kind of reacting to the Supreme Court decision. He mentioned this Higher Education Act, and this is the legislation from 1965, and he says he's going to try to use this to get his agenda completed. So what can you tell us about this legislation?
Right, and the key thing to look at is how these pieces of legislation are different. The Higher Education Relief Opportunities for Students Act from 2003, that's the HEROES Act you've referenced. That says that the Secretary of Education can waive or alter loan provisions, whereas the Higher Education Act in 1965 says that the Secretary can release or waive loans. So what the Supreme Court did, the Supreme Court made a very narrow decision in that the specific wording of the HEROES Act, which is what the Biden administration was relying on when they went to court, that the specific wording does not allow them to release the loan, just change the conditions under which it's repaid. So that was the reasoning that it was struck down on the basis of the HEROES Act. But as you pointed out, there's another act from a long time ago, 1965, the Higher Education Act, which uses language of release the loan of students. And so that's where Biden's hanging his hat now, and that'll take a little bit more time.
Now, we also heard the president continue to direct folks to studentaid.gov, and that's that government website where folks can go and apply for their student loan forgiveness. So he's continuing to push people towards this, saying, we're going to figure this out, continue to sign up. But we did hear him when he was referencing this Higher Education Act, just cautioning folks that this might take a little bit longer than what his original plan was going to take. What are you expecting as far as, potential delays or what might make this process longer with this new avenue?
Well, it's in a way, you're not reinventing the wheel, because they've got some groundwork knowing how they are going to approach the courts, but they're going to have to go through the courts again. It's almost certain that if they enact this on the basis of the Higher Education Act from 1965, that somebody's going to push back in the courts and it will be stayed. There'll be a temporary injunction put on it, and then they have to go back through the courts. And they know this particular Supreme Court is very keen on limiting what executive agencies, that means ones who work under the president, what the presidential branch can do to interpret the laws that are passed by Congress. There was a law that, under the Clean Air Act, how the Environmental Protection Agency was requiring power companies to put out clean air, and they struck that down, saying that language is not in the original law. And so that's exactly what you saw here. The language to release loans is not in the original law. That is in the Higher Education Act of 1965. So again, they're not reinventing the wheel, but everybody who is hoping to not have to repay at least $10,000 worth of their loans, they need to get on studentaid.gov, which is the FAFSA website. If you have kids in college, as I do, you're all too familiar with that. And get in there, and so that you won't be declared delinquent on any loan payments.
Okay. Very good insights, and we appreciate you taking the time once again, Dr. Scott Huffman, political science professor with Winthrop. Thank you.